Thank you for joining us on the Winning and Selling Podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
When a prospect or customer agrees to meet with you, agrees to give you 30 or 45 minutes of their time, what is it that they expect to get from this investment? We do know that 2/3 of the buying journey is done online. So it isn't basic product knowledge that the prospect is looking for. And based on other surveys, the top 5 words that are used to describe salespeople are pushy, untrustworthy, annoying, time, and greedy. So apparently salespeople aren't making a very good impression at those appointments. So be prepared to take some notes as Scott and I discuss bringing value to the appointment and other great ideas on episode 516 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
The Book Club is being brought to you by the BusyWeb, a growth, marketing, and sales enablement agency.
This is Dave Meyer with BusyWeb, a proud supporter of the Winning at Selling podcast. BusyWeb is a growth marketing and sales enablement agency in Minneapolis. Each week I'm bringing you buzz tips customized for sales pros to help you land more deals. If you need help driving leads to your biz, check us out at busyweb.com. That's BIZZYWEB.com. This week's tip, deliver personalized content with your CRM. Since any good sales CRM or customer relationship management tool provides data on your audience, you can use this information to create personalized content based on who you're selling to. A CRM like HubSpot makes it easy to create a list of leads in your industry that haven't yet converted into customers and to send them an email that caters to their specific needs. You'll easily know if they've opened that email and can reach out proactively with more details. Click the sponsor icon at winningatselling.com for details on CRM or go to busyweb.com, that's BIZZYWEB.com, for tools to start engaging your prospective buyers. Or give us a call at 612-4BUSY-O, that's 612-424-9990. Generate buzz without getting stung.
Before we get into the book club, and we usually take the book club break when we have a guest, so we can plan on that about every 3 weeks.
I'd like to give the guest full time.
Yeah, we've been recognized by Pipedrive, an independent website, as as the Winning and Selling podcast is one of the most influential sales podcasts available. So we ranked number 2 out of 22 on their list, and we're just thrilled. And we'll include a link to that so you can see where we rank and where some other great podcasts on selling are. So we're really grateful that our listeners choose us.
Yeah, we enjoy doing this. Hopefully it comes across as you listen to it. And if you're listening to this, tell your friends about it because you have other people in sales. This is a great educational program for anybody in sales. And I'll tell you what, almost all the things we talked about, Scott and I have both forgotten to do one time or another. You got to get that constant reminder.
Yeah. I sit in a seminar and I'm going, I used to do that. Why did I stop? God, what
it
happened?
Worked, and it worked.
Yeah. I was good at it too.
That's right.
We'll jump into the book. We're doing
Excellent.
Success Principles by Jack Canfield, and we're clipping right along. We broke the halfway point.
I think there's 64. So we're winding it up 2/3 done here.
Yeah. We got chapters 48 through 51 today. And chapter 48 is Be Here Now, which talks about listening. And just let me lay down the definition of listening. And I think that's kind of the foundation of this chapter is listening, which is an art of paying thoughtful attention with a mind towards understanding the complete message being delivered. And I think it's so important. And he talks about being heard and listening and the difference between the two. And I will add on, in addition to listening to the message and understand the complete message, I think it's also important for us to understand as salespeople and as recipients of information to be able to interpret the intent behind the content. I think if we communicate, think about it, we come up with an idea in our head, we pick the words to describe that idea, we say the words to another person, the other person hears those words and tries to define the words that they use, definition that they use for those words to try to uncover our intent. A miracle of birth is one thing. A miracle of communication is another, that we're able to communicate sometimes because there's so many ways that misunderstandings can occur because we're not really listening intently and the intent behind the content.
Well, I think too that we're filtering everything so much through our own experience, what we've heard, what we believe. What do they call it?
Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive. Yeah. I can't. Now it's my turn to speak like you.
Right. Thank you.
Anyway, cognitive dissonance, and we have these preconceived notions, and when somebody says something, we tend to argue with them instead of listen to them, or we tend to hear and start our argument in our own mind of what I'm going to say. And I think it's really important, especially when you're working with clients, but with friends, with family. Shut up for a minute. Quit trying to think of everything you're going to respond with and really just listen. This is classic Dale Carnegie. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Quit trying to be interesting and be interested. I think that's what he said. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. I love the definition that he used in the example about leading a meeting and how the meetings were not going well when this leader was, leading the meetings.
Great story.
Yeah. And the advice that he was given was to really clarify what the intent and the purpose is. And here's right out of the book. It says, the purpose of this meeting is for me to find out from you what you feel is going on in each department, what you feel are the breakdowns, and what you feel you need from me. And when you've got that agenda and you're really on the receiving end of information, you're really letting the people in the room determine what's most important. And then you know what's most important to them, and then you can address it accordingly. But if you don't know what's important to them, just like a salesperson, if you don't know what's important with a prospect, how can you sell them on something that you don't know that is important to them?
But if you're so busy thinking about what you're going to tell them and what your pitch is and what your product is, and you're starting as soon as they identify a need, you start to fill it with product. You just can't hear anymore. Yeah. So sit back, take notes, and think about what they're saying, not what you're going to say.
Right. And also in this chapter, there's 4 great, powerful questions that he gives Dan Sullivan credit for. If you have the book and you haven't read those questions, those are great 4 questions. So I encourage you to follow along with the book with us. Moving on to chapter 49, let's have a heart talk. And this was, a real emotional chapter when it talked about sharing your feelings, and they used the example of passing around an object, and Jack was talking about kind of a stuffed heart that people would get in a circle, and they'd pass this object around, and then they would share how they're feeling about something or what they think is going on, or again what's important to them, and then this would go around and around and around until everybody would say, I don't have anything more to add, I'll pass.
But I think the key was that you aren't allowed to argue with them.
True.
Just let them have their say. Again, it's taking this listening to the nth degree, and we're not here to argue. We're here to find deeply what people are feeling, and not just what is on the surface. And the stories he told about the family businesses that were saved because people were finally able to get out in the open what their frustrations were with one another and quit lying to each other. We call that Minnesota nice up here, where we pretend to be agreeing with people when we're really not. And so I think this is an important thing. I was in a situation once. I went down to Florida. We were supposed to do a big sales program for a company. We had it all mapped out, all ready to go. And the morning session, the CEO got up and said, well, about a third of you all are going to get fired.
Oh, God.
And so look, kind of look to your left, look to your right, one of you is going to be gone, sort of thing. And that blew the hell out of everything. Certainly. And basically the person who was leading it for the company I was helping at the time, he was so adroit at basically doing this. We had this huge heart talk in this room and let people have this catharsis and get this stuff out on the open, even though they didn't know who was going to be fired. There wasn't much sales training that went on.
I bet.
But he really handled it well with a great big heart talk.
Wow. Yeah. And they mentioned 8 rules, but I only saw 6.
I was going to bring that.
I kept looking. I mean, where's the
8? So, folks, if you're looking for 8, there's only 6 that either of.
Yeah.
If you find numbers 7 and 8, please send it to us.
You must have incorporated them someplace else because they weren't listed, and there were bullet points. They weren't numbers for those of you that are playing along at home.
Yeah, he snuck them in maybe in the text somewhere that I didn't get, but a great chapter.
Yeah. Number 50, tell the truth faster. And I always say, if you feel it, say it. And I've used this technique when I've been in sales, interview meetings on somebody going to hire me or not. And I sit down with the leadership, the CEO, the VP of sales, sales manager, et cetera. And I listen and I hear questions, and they ask me questions. I give them questions and answers and back and forth. And it ultimately comes up with, I say to them, based on what you're telling me right now is not a good time, I think, to be making any development and investment in the sales team. You're cutting back people. You're going to be creating some morale issues that people are going to be more on guard than they are going to be receptive. And I've lost sales, but I've gained respect.
Yeah.
And in those companies that go through that situation, they realize that was a good choice and not to hire me at this time, but I still maintain a relationship with them.
I think it's a good choice not to hire you.
Yeah. Well, under those circumstances, there's no successful outcome. I mean, I can't create it. They can't create it. The sales team can't create it. There is no win here. And I do not want to be associated with not winning. Well, I see it and they're anxious to solve problems, but they're already in their mind. They're thinking, we're going to replace a sales manager. You're going to be coming in. You're going to train the salespeople. Then the new sales manager is going to be hired. Then all the salespeople are going to say, well, that's not what Scott told me.
That's right.
It creates a big rub within the company going, we're defining a culture. In our training and development, we define a culture when we develop salespeople to be adaptive and receptive and relevant to today's marketplace. Somebody comes in from old school, they try to talk to a marketplace or try to talk to salespeople from a new marketplace. It creates that cognitive dissonance. It creates that rub. It creates that friction. That's not a good outcome.
Yeah, I think that salespeople they get caught in this trap of misrepresenting something, features that really aren't there, it doesn't have any bugs in it, sort of thing, because they want to make the sale. And this is where we all really fall down and have to be careful, because we're going to get caught. It's going to come out eventually. And it's amazing, if you tell the truth, how much people will respect you. I was listening to a speaker this weekend, an audio this weekend, and the woman was looking for her first job. She went to a bank. And they said, well, have you ever worked at a bank before? And she said, no. He said, have you ever handled money before? She said, no. Have you ever cashed out a cash drawer? No. He goes, well, heck, at least you're honest. And that's what we're mostly looking for at a bank. Wow. So we can teach you everything else. No, and that's what we've talked about. The character traits are very difficult to teach. Mm-hmm. Show that you have character, and we can teach you the techniques.
Yeah. I mean, that's leading a company. Leaders always need to have the correct information. And when you lie to them, they don't have the correct information. And when they end up making a decision based on the information they have, it's not correct. It makes the situation much, much worse. And it always comes back. You can't run from it. Number 51, speak with impeccability.
There you got it. First try.
Yeah, I got to sound it out. Scott, break it down. Sound it out.
That's right. I couldn't get cognitive dissonance. So
yeah. This chapter, I think the real theme is, not to be gossiping. And I love the example about, the pastor hearing a confession and the pastor gave the person an assignment. I want you to go to the north side of town. I want you to take a feather pillow. I want you to cut it open. I want you to carry it down Main Street like a pizza and all the way to the south side of the street on one day. Then come back and tell me that you did that. And the person came back and talked to the pastor and said, okay, pastor, I did that. And then the pastor said, okay, now today I want you to go pick up all the feathers. But pastor, that's impossible. That's exactly what gossip is like. Mm-hmm. When we're sharing stuff like that and you're putting it out there, you can never find out who's heard what. And the best thing to do is just not even start it from the beginning.
Yeah, the thing I always think about with gossip when I'm in a situation where I or someone else is talking about a third party that's not there, the question goes through my mind is, what does he or she say about me when I'm not here?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so what we do is we hurt our credibility. People won't tell us things if we get known for someone who passes things on. And it really doesn't help. So, and also I think you want to apply to online messages. Mm-hmm. How do you respond online? How are you seen? It's not just gossip, but are we nasty? Are we mean-spirited in the way that we say things? And sometimes we feel like being online, we have some kind of anonymity or barrier, but I've seen it happen on LinkedIn.
Mm.
Somebody says something, and then somebody has to have a nasty snide comment about, how hateful they are for saying that. And it just snowballs. And
Right.
so speaking with impeccability is also how you say things, the tone you have, all those things built around this. Are you somebody that is kind in the way that you respond to other people, or are you mean? And let's just not be mean.
Mm-hmm. I always like the example, if you were to move to a new town 2,000 miles away or 1,000 miles away, how would you want to act from that point future with all of the new people that you are going to meet? And if you think about the reputation that you want to create, it starts with the behavior, it starts with the character, it starts with your belief system. And once you have that belief system established with a fresh start, a new environment, new friends, new people, you can decide how you want to be as a person, and then how you want to be perceived, by others. I think John Maxwell's got a great quote: is that we judge ourselves by our intentions. Other people judge us based on our behaviors. And this is an example of, I'm not ever going to gossip again, or I'm not going to start gossiping, and know that you're a person that, if you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. And silence is okay, but at least you're not contributing to a problem, and you're sharing stuff that, is not putting other people in a favorable light.
Perfect. Excellent.
So next week, we're going to be covering, again, we're in part 4. We're in the last part of the book, principles 52 through 56. Again, we're in the home stretch. We're going to finish this book this summer, and I'm sure that you're going to want to read it every single year, because every single year we change, and how the content that Jack Canfield is giving us is going to be received differently. So this is one of those books that once you go through it once, it's going to make it easier to go through it again.
All right, Scott, that's great. Our big topic today is bringing value to the appointment. And this segment is brought to you by A.J. Imholt, a financial advisor dedicated to salespeople.
As a salesperson, you have enough to deal with. Prospects hang up on you, clients skip meetings, slow responses to your emails. It's enough to drive you bonkers. Fortunately, you can take control of your financial future. Your time is at a premium, and you want to focus on finding new clients and growing the customers you already have. So it's best to work with someone who takes the time to build an understanding of what you have on your plate. I'm AJ Imholt of Fortune Financial, and this is where I come in. As a financial advisor dedicated to salespeople, my goal is to help manage your portfolio so you can focus on what matters. Then, I'll take care of the boring details while you go out and crush your numbers. You can schedule a time to chat with me using the bookings link in the show notes. Good luck out there, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
A.J. Imholt is a registered representative and investment advisor representative of Security and Financial Services, Inc. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Security and Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. North Star Resource Group is independently owned and operated. Fortune Financial is affiliated with North Star Resource Group and is independently owned and operated.
Well, Scott, I've been thinking a lot about how we conduct ourselves in our first appointments, our first conversations with clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for years, I proposed that you make sure you go into the meeting with some pre-approach information, kind of a list of prepared questions, and we see where we go from there. But I think lately, Scott, and we've interviewed a number of really highly acclaimed authors and sales leaders, and they're saying you need to have more. You need to go in with more power, more value that you're bringing. And the customer is expecting a lot more from the salesperson than just basic knowledge, as I mentioned in the opening. So what is the value that the salesperson should be bringing to the first appointment and to every appointment? So, Scott, do you think customers' expectations are changing?
I think they are. I mean, if you get as far as getting invited in, or even if you get as far as getting, 30 minutes on their calendar for a phone call or a Zoom meeting, you've made it, like you said in the opening. I mean, people are 2/3 of the way on making a decision, and you're in the final approach. Now, there's a few more steps that need to go through, and there's a few more confirmations that need to be made, and the prospect needs to be able to feel like they're 100% confident in going with you, going with your company, going with your solution, and doing it all now. If you just think about those 4 areas, those are big deals. But a lot of it is like you said in the opening, is that salespeople's perception, reception, reputation is not that positive. But who's going to make a difference at that point? And that's you, the salesperson. How are you going to come across in that initial engagement and that initial conversation with somebody to be able to separate yourself from that? And when you separate yourself from that, the value is in the contrast. So if salespeople come in with I'm going to educate to influence, and I'm going to educate to advise, and not always educate to teach, because sometimes people already know a lot and you need to be more than just giving information. And their perception is that you're going to be a pushy salesperson. Think about the contrast between those two areas, and your value can be tremendously strengthened just by the perception that the prospect has of you when you come in. But you got to deliver on it too.
Right. Well, they're giving you, they've bought in at least partially to what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. They've given you this time. Now it's up to you to lay some foundation down so that this goes well. So I want to start this off. I like to start these kind of discussions with what is not value, right? Mm-hmm. What shouldn't we do? Because I think sometimes salespeople are holding on to old values or things they thought were valuable, and they really aren't. So the first one I have is something that you and I have both seen in salespeople. Mm-hmm. That's not a value. Winging it, because I've done this a lot before. Just pretending you know something, going in with your old expectations, your experience is not enough, and just winging it because I've been doing this for 10 years.
Right. And that's prejudging. And it's prejudging on both sides. Prejudging, they think they're never going to buy from me. And also prejudging, going, I've done this before. This is a slam dunk. I've worked with another company just like theirs that got referred in from somebody that I know. I already have a champion within the company. There's nothing that I need to do to be able to win this. It's a slam dunk. And boy, when you got your hat handed to you on the way out the door, you're going to, whatever happened? What happened? What just happened?
Yeah. After 5 minutes, they stand up and go, well, and then, when your client stands up and you're still sitting down, that's not a good sign.
Right. Exactly.
All right. The second thing that's not value is about 5 minutes of pre-approach on the prospect's website and a quick look at their LinkedIn profile. Now I know, he was with AJ company before, and these guys sell hats. So now I know everything I need to know about this company.
Right.
I've done my pre-approach.
Yeah. There's plenty of information available when you look a little farther.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. A couple of questions jotted down on a scrap of paper is not a real good preparation for an appointment.
I put together a full agenda, and an agenda is really a list of my questions, and they know what my questions are, and they can see the process that I'm going through. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and the director of sales looked at my agenda, and he says, wow, I can already see some gaps just in your questions, because I don't know the answers to them, and we need to know the answers to them. So I already learned a lot just by looking at your agenda. Yeah.
I think people respect preparation. It says, I respect you, even if it's the same agenda. The crazy thing is, when I prepare questions, I've got a list of them on my computer. I've got a place on my computer. I put questions. I go in and I maybe take, 5 that are pretty common, and then I think it through, and maybe I have 2 or 3 that are new. And then maybe I pull 2 or 3 from an old interview that I've done. And I've got a really good set of questions, but it doesn't take me that long if I've maintained that, if I have to rethink about it every time. But to have them down on a piece of paper so the customer can see them, even if I don't know, you hand them the agenda, which is good too. But they see that I did that. And I can't tell you the number of people said, man, I really appreciate you having these prepared questions.
And there's no surprises.
Right.
And they can see where I'm going. I'm not making it up. I'm not winging it. This is a system that I have, but they find out so much about what they don't know just in the questions that I have not even asked them yet.
All right. And big number 4, your company pitch is not value.
Right.
I've and you probably have too. I've been asked to review people's company pitches over and over again. And on every slide, I usually write 2 words.
So what?
So what?
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
So
big deal. So
what? We have 5 locations around the Twin Cities. So
big deal.
We've been in business since 2001. So what?
Yeah.
What do these things mean? I know they can give you some context, but they're not really value. They're just a little bit of background. and you think background is value, they probably figured these things out when they looked you up on LinkedIn and looked up your company. So you're telling them crap they already know. And then half the time you're just chest thumping because you think you're wonderful. I had a company used to talk about how they had international business. I said, when you work with Charlie's Fish Market down the street, do you talk about how you're internationally positioned?
Yeah, irrelevant.
Because he thinks now you're too big to work with him.
Yeah.
You're hurting your sale.
This is important in the confirmation step, which is after they've decided to go with you. We need to work on creating a bias in their decision and in their criteria for them to pick us.
Yep.
Once we create the bias, once we create the criteria, once they vote for us, they're looking for confirmation that they made the right decision. We've been around since 2001. Okay, now that's important. So they're pretty seasoned, and they've learned a lot, I'm sure, and that's why we're going through. This is why you see F-150 commercials on TV, not to sell F-150 trucks, but to confirm everybody that owns an F-150 truck that you made the right decision. And it's the confirmation of the decision that really reinforces the next decision. And when people are nervous about making a decision and they get the confirmation that they made the right decision, they feel better about the decision.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some things that are value. And these have come from some people that we've been talking to, some people that you and I have both seen personally in presentations. So one thing I think that you can bring as value is an area of relatability or interest regarding them as a person. So find out something unique about them as a person. Where did they go to college? What are their hobbies? What's their past history? Where have they been? Have they traveled? Those sorts of things. And I got this information from a friend of ours, Sam Richter, who does work on investigation. How do you go online and really look up some of these interesting facts that you might find out about beyond the LinkedIn? So find some kind of area of relatability, maybe if you played college sports and they played college sports, you might have an area of relatability.
Yeah, that's good. This is also really builds rapport quickly. And, I went into one appointment one time and I saw a book on the desk, and I knew that the author came out with a new book. And after, the appointment was done, I did a follow-up call and I said, I'm kind of curious, have you started that new book by that new author? And they said, no, I haven't. I said, let me order that for you.
Right.
And have it shipped to you. It's so easy to do on Amazon, and you just put in a different address. Boom. 2 days later, the book shows up, and all of a sudden you're supporting what's most important to them. Or you can even surprise them. So what if they already started the other book? Most likely that maybe they haven't. Otherwise, that book would be sitting on the desk.
That's
right.
Sit
on the book and say, hey, I just, I was going across Amazon. I saw this author came out with a new book, and I wasn't sure if you started or not, but I just wanted to send it to you. I'm grateful for the time. I just wanted to express my appreciation.
And something like that is a great focused opportunity to invest in that customer relationship. So good. Excellent. That follow up. And I think sometimes you can do that too, but that's, you see something on their shelf or they're a fisherman or something like that. But I think it's much better if you can prepare for it. And if it's something that's unique that they wouldn't usually find out about. Now, it's not like their arrest record or something. You don't want to go that unique, but perhaps something that they've done or accomplished in their life. People like to talk about their accomplishments. So, All right. Another one is, do you have any kind of internal experience with their industry or particular companies similar to theirs that you've worked with? So knowing that your company has invested and has a history in their kind of business is an important factor. I remember when I was with a training company, I was on one of my early appointments. We went to a past customer, and I was with my boss. It was really a great guy. And we sat down with him and with the owner of this company, and my boss said, "So tell me what we've done with you."
Oh, geez.
And the guy said, "You did it with us. You should know." Right. And my friend, who was a great guy, but not really always prepared, he was really a winging it kind of guy. He really set us off. Now, I eventually rebuilt that relationship with him, but it took a year of work to rebuild that relationship just on that. So make sure that you understand what's going on with that company. If they've done business with you in the past, investigate that and find out what's happening. So what else can you go? Any other kind of information you can go in with?
No, I like that idea. I mean, I was at the dentist last week, and the dentist says, you should probably come back for that teeth whitening service that we have. And I said, yeah, I did that last summer. Oh, okay. So either
Apparently
they
it didn't
didn't
work.
they didn't do a good enough job, or I drank too much coffee and red wine that put me back to where I was. But I think doing that research and knowing about the past experiences is also, but the industry, there is so much going on with regulations, with industry news, that if you can bring something up that's affecting them, or you can ask them for their opinion on something, you don't need to be the one that's going to tell them what you think, but if you ask them what they think about certain things that are going on, it makes them really receptive to talking with somebody who's interested in what industry they're in, and that you've done enough work and you're interested in absorbing information in their position on certain. It's amazing what you can find out when you do that.
Right.
And we don't have both sides of a situation when we go into a question like that, a scenario like that. When we ask the other person, how does this impact you? And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, is it good or bad?
Right.
Is selling alcohol on Sundays good or bad? And there's pros and cons to both sides of that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it goes tease up my next one, which is, and I think this is from Anthony Iannarino. He talks about getting appointments by doing a presentation on trends that are happening in the marketplace. So his appointment is I'd like to sit down with you for 15 minutes and talk about trends that are happening in the marketplace that are important to you. And I think that's a great way. I'm really looking at developing a little trend talk and using that to open up, because that will open up the conversation. You're bringing them some real value, what's going on, the knowledge that you have. You're giving a little presentation, and then getting their opinion on that. How do you see that, rather than saying this is what our company does? It's a great way to tee up a good conversation.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of an overlap from the Challenger sale when we did that book. It's not asking a question, what's keeping you up at night? It's bringing the situation in the current marketplace to, here's what should be keeping you up at night.
Right.
And here's our way of dealing with that before it impacts you, so you can be more proactive and reduce the cost and impact and the consequences of not doing anything, because not doing anything, generally costs 4 times as much as preventive maintenance and avoiding it from the beginning. And also think about the impact on the reputation when something happens and you're not proactive on avoiding that particular impact.
Yeah. What I like about this trend talk though, Scott, is you give them the trends, and if you got somebody sharp, they'll go, well, gee, Bill, what should we do about it?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And if they're asking the question of what should we do about it, then it's teeing up the great conversation that you can have about that. And so, you're saying that that's a challenge that you're facing, and now you can, but if you say, here's a challenge and here's what we do with it, now you're just really pitching again.
Right.
So what I like is if they'll ask. And so if you had this trend talk worked out well, it can tee up that conversation. So
this reminds me of a little bit of Covey too. Covey has, bring the future to the present. So the salesperson is saying, let's suppose this were to happen, what would happen next? Or let's pretend this had an impact on your company, what would you do next? And now you're creating these false, fake, predictive scenarios that who knows if they're happened or not.
That's right.
But you're giving them a chance to really think about what happens if I don't have this solution. I mean, if you were to lose your phone today, our salespeople, what would happen next? I mean, first of all, we'd be panicking. The panic would come over us like we've never felt before when we can't find our phone. And now we think about all the impact and all the data, and now that's replacement costs. And what am I going to, oh man, if we do the same thing with our prospects are thinking about what happens if I don't hire this person right now or buy from this company right now? What are my consequences that I experience?
Yeah, excellent. So another one that we have, we're going to wrap this up here pretty quick, but I think you need to know who their current supplier is of the product or service that you're using. Can you find that out? Can you ask who you're currently using? Get that in pre-approach so that you can do some examination of where your company compares to their company, especially if you're new in sales. That's a great way to learn, is to find out what their product or service is and then who's supplying them.
Yeah. I have one last one, and that is know the criteria that they're going to follow when they make a decision. If you do not know the criteria, it's tough for you to adapt the buying process to their criteria. If they do not have the criteria, then you need to define the criteria.
And that's one of your questions in your agenda, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll see that there's a process to the questions, but define the criteria that they should follow. This is like defining an RFP. You get RFPs, you're like, oh, fill out all these questions. No, why don't you determine the questions that you should be asking your prospects to define the criteria that they should be following when they make a decision that plays to your strengths, that delivers what's most valuable to them, that is the value that you sell and prospects buy.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. I really like that advice about following a process and finding out what their process is and merging those two together. My last one is to make sure you have a good list of 10 thoughtful questions and that they're put in order that gradually challenge the prospect's thoughts and assumptions. Don't start out with your most difficult questions first. You start off with questions to get agreement. So you have some questions to define some things that you already know, and then you move into more challenging questions about why aren't they doing what they should do. And so that's part of the challenger sales is you have to challenge what they're doing now, or there's no reason for them to change and use your product or service. So make sure you have that list of 10 questions. I like Scott's idea about an agenda, making sure that one of those 10 questions is, what is your buying process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great stuff, Bill. Great topic.
Excellent. All right. Do you have any resources that you want to?
I do. When I always think that when it comes to training and development salespeople, it's really important to find out where are we at before we begin. And kind of like doing an X-ray before surgery. And I offer a DISC assessment, and it really looks at what are the strengths of the salesperson, what are the styles and the priorities, and then what areas do we want to develop to get better outcomes. So if you're interested in having an assessment done for yourself, for your sales team, go to the show notes, reach out to me, and we can set up a time to talk a little bit more about that.
All right. And I just want to make sure we have the link to that Pipe Drive blog about sales podcast. So,
yep, that'll be there too.
Excellent.
Our golden nugget today is a quote by Ben Stein. Personal relationships are the fertile soil from which all advancement, all success, and all achievement grows from. And I think that's really important when it comes to any type of conversation you have. It's always based on some kind of a relationship, a sponsorship, a friendship, etc. And I'm going to steal this from a guy that I know named Bob Schlichty. He does a talk on shipbuilding. And one of the things is friendships, relationships, and sponsorships.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it was a nice reference back to the success principles that we talked about today. For my part, you talked about reading the success principles every year. I think that might happen for me, but I do read How to Win Friends and Influence People every year. I have for 25 years since I used to teach it. I probably read it every year for 30 years.
Wow.
And actually, I read there was a new one for the digital age, and I couldn't read it.
I saw that.
I couldn't read it because it just wasn't as well written as the original. I know Dale has old stories and, people you don't know and authors you've never heard of, but he sure is a good writer. So anyway, I'd recommend that book as well.
That is a great book. I got the 4th edition. It's hardcover. It was my grandfather's, who was a doctor. And that's just one of my treasured books.
Yeah, I have one
version.
I have one signed by Dorothy Carnegie, his wife.
Wow.
Yeah. He had died quite a while ago. So anyway, for all this information, for all the links we have, for Scott's information on the DISC assessment, go to winningatselling.com. Look for the information in the show notes.
Our book club, again, like we mentioned in part 4, principles 52 to 56. And like Bill said earlier today, share this podcast on social media with your colleagues and your company leadership, and is a demonstration of your commitment to your career in sales and sales management. And our topic for next week is same, different, or better.
I can't wait to hear what that means, Scott. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.